What is up, everybody out there in YouTube land? Welcome to the Game Cafe discussion channel. It's your boy Jay, and tonight I got a very special podcast that I'm going to be doing. It's a series of podcasts in which me and my guests will be discussing a female character and a female game character and discussing their overall importance in the world of gaming. And tonight I got with me Rule of Two Review. How you doing, man?
What's up, guys? What's up, Jay? Glad to be here, man.
All right. Now, tonight we're going to start this off with the Metroid series, and we're going to be talking about Samus Aran and her importance in the world of gaming and where we would like to see, the series go and things of that nature. So first off, we're going to talk about her importance. To paraphrase here, I'm just going to keep it real with you guys.
Keep it real.
I do. Samus is the original badass chick. she is. Before there was Chun-Li, there was Samus. Samus, and to understand the game a little bit, you have to understand a little bit about Gunpei Yoko and Miyamoto, and because if my memory serves me correctly, they got the idea for this from watching Alien.
Yep, that's totally true.
Yeah, so
that's exactly it. Hey, which starred a badass female character.
Yep, Sigourney Weaver as Ripley. Which is now that I just said Ripley. God dang it, they stole Ridley.
Yeah, it's so true, man. Oh my god.
So Samus is our very own space bounty hunter, Nintendo style. And her story is a tragic one because depending on what story you know from, but me, I've read like the actual manga and the actual other stories that have done over in Japan that for some reason they won't release over here.
Which is so unfortunate. And I have to say, I'm very familiar with those stories in that manga and the story within it, but I've never had a chance to find it or read it, not even online. So I'm actually really jealous that you've been able to read it. That's super cool.
I got lucky. Let's just put it like that.
You sure did.
Yeah, but the story basically, and I'm just gonna go over a little briefly of the manga because the manga was actually sanctioned by Nintendo, so it's actually you can actually kind of say it's canon.
It's canon.
Whatever.
It's canon.
Yeah. So basically, Samus is growing up living on her planet SR-388 with her parents, and when it is attacked by space pirates, they pretty much raise the planet to the ground, and Ridley, the dragon, kills Samus. Well, mortally wounds her and leaves her for dead.
Yeah, she is, I think, as dead as you can be without being flatlined.
Yeah, and the Chozo, who are bird-like aliens, actually give her a blood transfusion to save her life. Which actually, when they give her the blood transfusion, they didn't know if it was going to work or not. They were just trying to save this child's life because everybody else was too far gone, and she was somehow still had a pulse.
Now, did they? I don't want to interrupt too much, but I have to ask because I still don't know the fine details. When that happened in the story, do you know if they already sort of believed in her as like their savior? Because isn't that kind of what she becomes for the Chozo? Or am I jumping ahead? I don't want to.
No, you're not jumping ahead. Okay. You're actually right in that aspect because that's where some of the stuff that you find out in Metroid Prime comes from, in the first one, that is. But they save her. Her body actually adapts to the blood transfusion, and they train her to become a warrior, basically. And she spends years training. They don't say how many years, but it's assumed it's a long amount of time because the blood transfusion actually heightened her durability, not like enhanced speed, but enhanced strength or stuff like that. But she has enhanced durability and stamina and all of that good stuff.
She's kind of superhuman-esque for sure. I mean, Samus is more than just a normal woman, right? Yeah. She's got something.
Yeah, and she has a wicked case of I hate all space pirates. And that's where like a couple of stories like deviate a little bit. Because in some people's interpretation, she has PTSD, an extreme case of that. In other interpretations, if she sees a space pirate, she's kill and destroy and don't leave anything alive. Like if you mess with her, she goes into like a berserker rage.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because those two concepts you bring up obviously have been a source of heated debate and controversy, you could say, in the Metroid universe the last 5 to 6 years or so years, right? So that's interesting. Yep. Yep. Which I'm sure we'll be discussing. We were just mentioning. I'm sure that'll come up.
And actually, you know what? Let's go into that right now, because
sure. Okay.
I'm on the side of she goes into a berserker rage just based off the games that I've played. The only game that I've played that she has the PTSD in is Other M. The rest of the games, it seems like, especially like certain actions that she does. For instance, in Metroid Prime 3, when she's fighting Ridley and she's falling down that tube, where you don't know if she's gonna survive that or not, but she's just down there and she's going to kill Ridley one way or another. Ridley's gonna die if she has to die with him. To me, that's not PTSD. She's not afraid of Ridley. She wants him dead. So it's one of those situations where it kind of, I guess it depends on the game developer and the story they want to go with. But I always erred on the side of it's her rage at remembering what the space pirates did to her home planet, killed her parents in front of her, left her for dead, and she has a serious issues with that. So what you think, man?
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize I was on mute the whole time. I'm messing up the podcast. I'm sorry, guys. Anywho, so yeah, I definitely agree with that when you talk about the difference of the rageful vengeance kind of Samus and the Samus that has that kind of PTSD. You know, I feel like obviously we want to think of Samus as like the rageful, vengeful person, the one who is almost the robotic, uncompromising badass of, oh, you're the one who killed my parents. I hate you. Let's fight. And that's all I'm focused on. Because that's the cooler, more fun Samus. Like, that's what's more exciting. And I definitely agree. But I still like the fact that, even though it's obviously an unpopular opinion, as we discussed, I like the fact that Other M's tried to explore the aspect of what would it mean for Samus as a human being to have experienced what happened when they were when the space pirates destroyed her planet and killed her parents and all that. I mean, the idea of making her human and dealing with a lasting effect that would have on somebody, I think was a cool exploration. And I guess we don't have to get too much into the particulars of that game yet. I don't know what you want to do there, but I think that there's merit there, and I think that it's a cool thing to explore and discuss. I still like that Samus who has that vulnerability and is like a normal human woman. But at the same time, the Samus from Metroid Prime 3, that all she wanted to do was kill Ridley, even if it killed herself, I mean, that's the cooler Samus. Like, let's get down to business. That's the Samus that we like more. And so that's kind of how I look at those two differences, if that makes sense, you know?
That makes sense. I mean, and that's the source of the debate, I guess, for that, because at the time, before Other M, you really never got a sense of that, even in any of the other games. You never got a sense that she was
I think maybe like the closest would be in Metroid Fusion a little bit, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, because Fusion is dealing. We didn't know it at the time, but for anyone who doesn't know, and I know Jay, you know this, but Fusion takes place right after Metroid Other M. So what we didn't realize at the time was that the events that they're discussing with the computer that has Adam Malkovich's, kind of conscience, and it reminds her of Adam Malkovich. Like, that's really playing on that vulnerable Samus that we would eventually learn in Other M.
Yeah.
So it's cool how they did that.
And it's important. That's why it's important to play a lot of these games in a series, because the way it's set up, the way the Metroid series is set up, is a lot like how they went and set up The Legend of Zelda, where you kind of have to pay attention to the games in the series because each one of them connects a dot to something else.
Yeah, and it really is more just like connecting a dot than being direct sequels and prequels for the most part, right? I mean, yeah, for the most part. It's kind of, that's actually a really good comparison you make. It's sort of like Zelda, or even to a lesser degree, but still a little bit Final Fantasy, where it's like there's like kind of this continuous sort of like beats that are hit throughout them all that are canon within each other, but at the same time, there's sort of an element of, are they in a different universe? You know, and like there is a timeline for Metroid. just like there has been recently a timeline for Zelda. But at the same time, there are some really stark differences. Like the Metroid Prime trilogy are 3 games within their own story, and they do have a place on the timeline, right? But they also kind of, haven't they sort of said that it kind of happens separate from the regular timeline as well? Haven't I heard that before?
Yes, it has, because the problem is Super Metroid. That's the problem.
Well, because that begins the other effective trilogy that exists, right? Which is the very end of the timeline, which is Super Metroid, which feeds right into Other M, which feeds right into Fusion, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and so Super Metroid does kind of change everything, I guess, huh?
Yeah, if you're looking at Metroid Prime and you were trying to say, okay, where would it fit? You would probably fit it right after 1.
Yeah, isn't that where it goes, or is that
like a couple of years after 1?
Is it before 2 then, or is it after 2?
It would be before 2.
Okay, all 3 Metroid Prime games.
Yeah, because
and Hunters, I guess, right? Hunters is considered part of it.
Hunters is considered part of it. Hunters is more like a side story, like happens like between Metroid Prime 2 and 3.
It was like a dream she had, and they just made it a game and said, "Oh, well, this is in the timeline, I guess."
Yeah, well, actually, no, because like one of the space pirates that you kill in 1 is actually is in Hunters.
Oh, yes. Wait a minute.
That you thought you killed.
From
Weevil,
the first one? From the first Metroid Prime?
Weevil from the first Metroid Prime game is in Hunters. He's one of the space pirates that you thought you killed.
I think you're right. And then isn't there also one that shows up at the end of Corruption?
That ends up, shows up at the end, yeah.
Man, so they did like weave tiny little elements of that into the rest of the Prime stuff.
Yep.
Well, that's cool. I kind of knew that was basically true, but I wasn't sure of all the... I didn't know about Weevil, actually. That's crazy. Who is Weevil?
Yeah, because Weevil, the only thing that's Weevil has is his spine and his brain. That's why it's a suit.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, because he's one of the guys that's in the he's not in the frigate. He's actually on Talon, and he's like in the corner.
He's in the corner, just chilling.
Just in the corner, crumpled up, and she like left him there.
That's such a crazy thing to think about, man. The things you didn't know. That's awesome. Yeah. I had no idea, dude. Right on.
It's one of those things that I found out when I was playing, and I was just like, I went back and I was reading some stuff, and I'm like, that makes so much sense. And when you go back and like play the game again, and you start reading lore and you start doing all that,
looking for that stuff.
Yeah, you find it.
That's amazing. That's so crazy. Well done, Nintendo.
Which goes into my next point: the importance of the Metroid Prime series as a whole within the Metroid universe. And the Metroid Prime series in and of itself is a trilogy that actually, when you play the first one, if you get, I'd say, 85 to 90% of that game scanned, you will get a whole lot of lore for the entire Metroid saga.
It's true. That was definitely how I learned about who the Chozo were, because that was the introduction within the game universe. And actually, let me ask you this. The manga, was that after Prime or before Prime?
That was, well, the way they described the manga was it was kind of set before.
Well, I'm sorry. No, when did it release? I mean, when did they write it?
After. It was like 2002 or 3.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I've seen a lot of panels from it, and so I know she's very little. She's a super, super little girl.
Yeah, because she's like, when the manga opens, when they do the initial raid, she's only like 4.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought.
Yeah, she's like 4 years old. By the time the end of the second chapter, she's like 17, 18, but she's training with the Chozo.
Gotcha. It kind of reminds me of, I don't want to derail your thought about the importance of the Prime trilogy, but it reminds me of, if you think back to that amazing commercial for Other M. Do you remember that live action commercial?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was so good. And do you remember when it showed that little girl version of her?
Yeah, the little girl that was falling back, and Ridley
Ridley was attacked. I mean,
that's actually from the manga.
That exact shot is?
That's when he stabs her.
Dude, that's so awesome, man. Poor Other M. It gets such a bad rap. Anyway, we can go into that later, but anyway.
Yeah, that's when he stabs her. When he stabs her because he blows up her mom. Her dad's trying to fend them off, and he blows them up.
Damn.
And he looks at her because Ridley, Ridley's one of those interesting characters where he can actually speak, but he only speaks to people that he feels are not vermin. I guess you could say.
Sure. Like he doesn't want to have to look down on them. Like, you're not worth my time kind of thing.
Yeah. Like,
it's kind of a level of honor, as weird as that sounds.
Yeah,
right?
basically. Basically. And he basically kills her because it's a feeling of, in Metroid Prime, in the first one, they talk about the hatchling. Well, Samus is the hatchling. So he tried to I guess alter his fate, I guess. And kill the hatchling.
As in he knew that she would be a threat.
Yeah, he just
that's very Harry Potter-esque of him. It's very Voldemort-like.
Well, yeah, and you wouldn't know that unless you played the first Metroid Prime game. Sure. Because a lot of the stuff, especially like in the ruined hall where you fight the ghost of the Chozo, and you find the lore behind the throne, that talks about, you know, the hatchling, what she was meant to do.
Yeah, see, and that's what I remember, how she was like the Chozo's chosen hero. Like, they basically saw her as their own version of a messiah.
Basically.
Although the difference is, though, like you were talking about earlier, is that they kind of train her to do so.
Yeah.
You know, like they kind of create their own messiah as opposed to the messiah just happens to be. But it's awesome when you think about that. Like, Samus represents that for her people. And she always, you know, something else that people don't talk about is she really considers herself to be Chozo. Isn't that right? Like, she takes pride in how that was her family growing up and who raised her.
For the most part, yeah.
That's who she identifies as a Chozo, basically.
Yeah, she was 4 years old. So, yes, she knew who her parents were, but she don't really...
She doesn't have like an emotional bond to them.
Yeah.
Or connection, really, other than, you know, I guess like the vengeance she wants to take on space pirates for what they did.
Yeah, because she didn't get to grow up with them. She grew up with these bird aliens, basically.
Yeah. And that was and to bring it kind of back now, because I did sort of derail you. Sorry there, man. But when you were talking about the importance of Metroid Prime and you were talking about the lore, that's why that lore is so great. Because personally, I'd never played a game like that when that game came out, where it's like, wow, I'm just like discovering the game as I play through it if I want to. And then I became addicted at reading everything because I realized that was telling me the story. And it was the first time I think we'd ever heard of the Chozo and got an idea of who they were and why they were important to Samus.
Well, it's the first time they actually go into the Chozo. Because you find out that the Chozo were like this great race, but half of them were scientists and the other half were like religious fanatics. And you find out that some of the space pirates came actually from the Chozo.
Was that in Metroid Prime? I don't remember learning that part. Okay.
It's in the ruined hall when you fight the ghost.
Gotcha.
The ghost of the Chozo in the ruined hall. I think it's the second time you go through there. When the lights, you go into
when the lights go dim. Yeah, I think it's the first maybe 1 or 2 times they're not there, and then you come back, and that becomes a consistent place. You have to go back and fight them, and it's really
And that's when you find out about like the space pirates were like their shame or whatever.
Gotcha. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I don't remember that part either. I love that you have that perfect handle on all that lore. So that's very helpful.
I've been playing a lot of Metroid Prime lately.
As you should, good man.
Yeah.
I've been going through. If anyone's seen the Let's Play on my channel, I'm going through Metroid Prime 2 again for a Let's Play. So
yeah. So and once again, like, and you got to remember, the first Metroid Prime game and Metroid Prime 2 did not have voice acting.
Nope. Not at all. All it would say, the only voice acting in that game was recording to logbook, and that was only in Metroid Prime 2.
Yep.
I thought that was the coolest thing ever, because coming off of Metroid Prime, there was no voice acting. And then Metroid Prime 2 came out, and whenever you would scam something that went to your logbook, there was that woman's voice that would say, recording to logbook. And that was awesome. But no actual voice acting, you're correct.
Yeah. So, which actually to me makes it better, because the whole great thing about Metroid is the fact that you are alone on this world by yourself, a la Alien.
Oh, without question.
Yeah, it's kind of like a space action horror movie.
It is, and then actually, I kind of want to hold my thought, because some of that I want to talk about later with another topic you brought up.
Okay.
But when I still think about, like, when you talk about, for example, like the importance again of or the Metroid Prime trilogy, like I feel like it's important for so many reasons. Like it is really important within the Metroid universe because of the lore and all the things that we're talking about here, but also because I feel like it's what brought Metroid into like the modern minds of gamers today. Even though the Metroid Prime was 2002, which is 13 years ago, as crazy as that is to think about, it still feels modern when you play those games today. And because it's 3D and in first person, and the first time we had ever seen Metroid that way, that's still how we're gaming today. So it feels so relevant to gaming, whereas, you know, you can argue that the 2D Metroid is, for some people, the best, and I kind of still actually agree with that. But the 2D Metroid isn't as modern feeling and as relevant to a lot of gamers today as the 3D stuff and the first-person stuff. So I feel like it's important because of what it means to the story and the lore, and also because it kind of took Metroid to a new place and a new face for gamers, you know? Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and even in that, going to like the one thing that the Metroid Prime series actually does, it actually introduces you to more races. Like throughout the trilogy, you the first race you really talk about is the Chozo. That's the first one.
Sure.
You're pretty much on. You're learning more about the Chozo than you ever learned before. The second one, you learn about the Ing and the Luminoth.
Mm-hmm.
The third one, you actually learn about the Ila, the Chozo, I forgot what the other ones were. It's like 4 more other races and how they all connect.
Yeah, because there's different lore for each one of them.
Yep. Yeah. So on every planet you go to, there's different lore and how it connects and how the Chozo was active in all of their races.
Yeah, and that was what was really cool about Corruption 2, just speaking specifically about that game, is because not only did they have the cool mechanic of, oh, now we're going to a couple of different planets throughout this as opposed to being stuck on just one planet, but having that different lore and history for each planet is like insane that they did that, and it made that world so real. And the universe of Metroid that much deeper.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a good pool of lore that they set up really for potential future games and installments.
Which brings me to the thing that I actually enjoy about Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, why I actually kind of like it better than 2 and 1, is the fact that
that's a tall order, but that's okay. Carry on.
Yes. the only thing that I give it that actually makes me like it a little bit better is because of the way you get to see the different planets and the fact that they actually put in the voice acting like I think it should be for all Metroid games. You are Samus. Yes. I do not want to hear Samus talk.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody else can talk.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to hear her talk.
I totally agree. Go ahead. Sorry.
And that's why I like that game. To me, it embodied what I always thought a Metroid game should be, because we go to this world and every world you go to, you touch down, you're like, is everything dead? You know? but I don't need to hear her innermost thoughts. I need to be paying attention to my surroundings, because you don't know when a camouflage alien is going to come off and try to take your head off.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, be quiet because there's things that will kill us here.
Yeah.
So I don't need to reflect about the baby.
Yeah, I just don't. And I think Metroid Prime 3, in my opinion, did it the right way.
Well, and what I agree with on that, I have an element where I agree and I have an element where I disagree. The element that I agree with is, especially when you look at like Nintendo games specifically, it's a conversation about their modern presentation and should they have voice acting in this and that or not. Mm-hmm. And what's good about that is it shows one of the best ways you can do that, because Nintendo's always worried about telling you how the character should feel as opposed to you feeling like the character, so they don't want voice acting for the characters. Well, what about if the character you play as isn't talking and it's just the world around you that's talking? And in Corruption, it worked fantastically, so I totally agree. Now, when you think about the idea of if Samus should talk, I'm not going to lie. Like, I still really do like the idea of Samus talking in a game where it's handled really well. And obviously, this has to bring us full circle back to Other M again.
Yep.
Because Other M was the game where Samus talked a lot, and many, many, many people had a huge issue with that. And I totally understand why. And even I will agree that there are a lot of elements of how and why she talked that might not have been executed the best way. But I still liked it. I still liked hearing her speak in any situation, let alone the inner monologue stuff. And I kind of look at a difference between, you know, Samus talking in a game like Metroid Prime and Samus talking in a game like Other M. The way I sort of justify it is, you talk about, if I'm on a place like Talon 4 or Planet Aether, I don't want to be hearing Samus talk a lot and hearing her inner monologues, because you need to be focused. And like you said, look out for an alien that might come around and rip our heads off. Totally agree. In a Metroid Prime game or a game like that, you don't have Samus talk. But in a game like how Other M was actually like created and directed and put together, I think it was a game where Samus talking and having an inner monologue actually worked, because the game was sort of created around that kind of Samus. Mm-hmm. So I feel like it's how you have to really consider what kind of Samus you would have, like a talking Samus or a non-talking Samus, an emotional Samus or a badass Samus, and build your game around that Samus from the ground up. And I think that's why I will give those elements in Other M a pass, because I think the game around it is really good, even if some of that stuff wasn't perfect. But that being said, there's no doubt that if they were going to try that again, I think they need to be a little more focused on how they give us a talking, thinking, feeling Samus, and maybe just do it a little more right for a larger audience.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Because I feel like it just depends on which Samus and which game we're looking at.
Yeah, and it always going to come down to what we visualize as the gamer, how we visualize how they sound. That's why I have a problem when I hear people say, "Oh, I want to hear it's 2015. There should be voice acting in all games." Yeah, but
Link should talk and stuff like that.
Here's the problem with that: the voice that you have in your mind for it is not going to be the voice they pick out.
It's true,
and you're going to hate it. And that's what happened with Other M.
It's true. I mean, again, even as a fan of Other M and that version of Samus, part of the problem with Other M 2 was also how they did it.
Yeah.
Because it was so focused on the inner monologue and stuff, and her inner monologue was delivered very blandly on purpose. You know, people complain about that stuff, and it's like, well, if you pay attention to the other scenes where she's having voice acting, actually interacting with characters, she isn't talking like flatly. She only did that when she is having her inner monologue moment.
Yeah.
So I feel like, you know, the fact that they did so much of that inner monologue flat delivery was kind of what hurt them. So yes, people had an issue because that Samus voice didn't live up to what they had in their head. But you could make an argument that if they wrote it better, then it maybe would have appealed to a slightly larger audience than it did. Even though, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that is true. Because like most everything nowadays comes down to writing.
It really does. Yeah. It's almost everything absolutely comes down to the writing.
Yeah, and I think that's why, like, and here's where I'm going with this. Like, I love the Prime series. Don't get me wrong, but I beat it. Mm-hmm. I beat Metroid Prime. I beat Dark Samus. I don't need another Metroid Prime. So yeah. I think we should move away from that and go to the next story, her next adventure.
And that's so tough because so many people, and I agree with you. I've said this a couple times, so we're super on the same page with that. Like right now, when people talk about a new Metroid, they always say Metroid Prime. I mean, do you notice that? People say, "Oh, we need a new Metroid Prime. Why didn't you talk about a new Metroid Prime?" And it's like, well, Prime is only part of what Metroid is. Yeah. It's like, it's not what defines Metroid. Metroid has been a couple of different things. So why does it have to be a Metroid Prime? And people just associate Metroid nowadays with that. But there's so much more to it that it could be. And you're right. That story, people forget about this. That story wrapped up.
Yeah, it was a clean wrap.
It was a clean wrap. I mean, they made it feel when you beat the Aurora 313 unit at the end, which is effectively Metroid Prime still, and Dark Samus and all that stuff. When you do that at the end of Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, it feels like the story is over.
Yeah.
So...
Like, she goes off for her next adventure.
Yeah, she's like, well, I'm done with that Prime business. Let's go do something else now.
Yeah.
Which is where she basically starts Super Metroid.
Basically.
So, anyway, but you can continue. I'm just kind of agreeing.
Yeah, that's why I like when I hear, because you said it right. When you hear people talk about it, they keep saying Metroid Prime. And I hate to have to be that guy, but dude, I beat that. Mm-hmm. I love Ocarina of Time. I don't want to see Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Ganon's Revenge.
Yeah. Ocarina of Time Part 2. Totally agree.
I did that game.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next adventure.
Yeah, let it be its own kind of masterpiece, like you because you can take Samus in an adventure that feels like it's continuing after the events of Metroid Prime without making it be Metroid Prime 4. Because Metroid Prime was a character. Like it's not just the name of those games, it's also the enemy you're fighting, and that enemy is dead.
Yeah.
Like the enemy is dead. It would be like if The Force Awakens, if Episode 7, instead of being called The Force Awakens, was called Darth Vader Fights Again, but Darth Vader's dead. And Darth Vader you can't do that. You don't put Darth Vader's name in a movie where Darth Vader isn't in it. And Metroid Prime won't be in another Metroid game, so why make it Metroid Prime 4?
I'm glad you said that. So people, if you played the series, you know this already.
Yeah, spoiler alert. We spoiled all 3 Metroid Prime games.
Yeah. I hated I did that, but look, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's definitely been enough time. And the other thing, too, though, that I think about, tell me what you think about this. I think that what people are kind of thinking about without thinking about it when they say, oh, we need another Metroid Prime. And I've talked about this in some videos and on podcasts before, too. What I think they're really thinking about is just the gameplay. They just want another first-person Metroid game. That's really what they mean to say, right? So I even though you're the host here, I'll pose this question to you, is whether or not it was Prime or not Prime, when you think about another Metroid game or the future direction, I think you might have even were going to ask this, so I hope I'm not totally stealing your question. But I do want to hear your thoughts.
Okay.
Right? Should it be Metroid? Should it be first person? Should it not be first person? I mean, or what do you think about when you think about that?
Actually, because that was right where we were about to go.
Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to accidentally take over, dude.
Oh, no. It's fine. It's fine, because that's exactly where I was going to go. And I'm glad you asked, because I think one of the things that Other M got right for me was the mix. The mix of first person and third person. I want a mix of those play styles. Why? Because one, I like those WWF moves.
Yeah.
You
put that on one of my Other M videos too. I remember that. You were like, I love that one because it's like a pile driver or something that you totally referenced WWE. It was so funny. I was like, dude, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, she British Bulldog and shot it in the head. Okay.
It's so badass. It's so
badass. So I kind of want that. I want that mix. A mix of it. Like have a few sections where you do need to go through it first person. But
so you do think some of the first person stuff of that should still be around?
Yeah, some of it should still be around, for like your scanning and stuff like that, or zooming in, by all means. But give me my third person, because I like the fact that, especially after reading the manga and stuff like that, she is a brawler.
Yeah, she's a damn good fighter.
She's a brawler. You would not run up on Samus.
No, and if anything, one of the best parts about Other M, just like you said, is that game absolutely showcased that her fighting ability is second to none. She is an unstoppable force physically. Yeah,
which is amazing, seeing how, because you get the idea of just how fast she is in that suit. But if you take her out of that suit and in that, when she's just her regular Zero suit self, it's worse. She's worse because she will end you quickly.
So you mean in Other M, like, is that you're talking about, like when you lose the suit at the end, or is that what you're talking about?
No, well, in Other M, normally when you lose the suit, you're dead. But in other media, when they've shown her, like, she'll power the suit down, and she will fight.
And and you're saying how she's still a badass even with that suit?
She's still a badass.
Yes,
in that suit, in just her regular, because people tend to think that she can't, because she looks like a normal 20-something.
Yeah, just like a normal girl.
Yeah, but she is like worse than Ronda Rousey, Cyborg, and Gina Carano put together.
She's like the female Terminator, basically.
Yeah, basically with the speed of Muhammad Ali.
Damn, she's floating like a butterfly.
Yeah. So
well, and it's kind of like what you said when you were recapping the manga, though, right? Is that's how she has that superhuman ability kind of to her because of the blood transfusion from the Chozo, right?
Yep.
So that's where that comes from. Like even her normal self is still better than human.
Yeah, because it's kind of like she has like heightened senses, heightened, like I said, it's heightened stamina, heightened durability. I hate to have to say it, but sometimes it kind of like it'll make you feel like the suit is actually kind of holding her back a little bit.
Kind of like Piccolo when he has to take off his weighted outfit.
Yeah, basically.
Same thing.
Yeah, basically like that. But like the suit, of course, serves its purpose because it keeps her alive on those hostile planets. But,
yeah, I mean, it helps her is like underwater, and it's obviously good armor, if anything.
Yeah,
it's the protection that it offers, and the visor.
Right? Yeah, and the visor. So I mean, looking forward into the future, one of the things that I know I've talked about this at length because of Metroid Prime 3. Actually, I want space battles.
Oh, yeah. How cool. Well, because that would be in a ship. Now, I agree, but because you would be doing space battles like in a vehicle or something, do you think that other people might revolt or take issue with it? Like, I'm curious what you think about that.
If you do the space battles like they were done in, remember the game on GameCube, Star Wars?
Rogue Squadron.
Yeah, Rogue Squadron. If you do it like that, no problem. There won't be one complaint.
Pretty much no, because it would be so good.
Yeah.
Or even like Star Fox too. I mean, it kind of makes you think about. I mean, Nintendo's obviously done that stuff before.
Yeah. So I mean, that's why I'm like, I want a mix of like space battles because the space pirates, they're space pirates. They do raids. They do, I would love to see like they even did a raid in Metroid Prime 3 at the beginning of the game. They showed a space pirate raid.
Did they? When I'm trying to remember that. I'm going through the plane.
Right over
the beginning of it.
Is that the beginning? Right over North.
Right. You're totally right. That's when you have to go to all the different like the A, B, and C junctions, right?
Yep.
And like Rundus is going to one and Gandrada is going to the other.
Yep.
Totally. And you have to activate those things with the morph ball. That was a raid. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, because like they show you like if you go like when you're on the space station before you fight the Berserker, when you're on the space station, if you look out, you can see them fighting. If you look out the blast shields, you can see like the Federation fighting space pirates. That's what I was like.
There's a whole air battle going on around you on Norian. It's all around you.
So
when you're outside.
That's why that's one of the things that I really want in like the next console version of Metroid. I want like a mix of first and third person, but I also want at least 2 or 3 segments where it's space battles.
I think that would be cool because it would be. I will say to my question to you, I think people might still take a small issue with it, just on principle. It would be their personal principle. Oh, you shouldn't do that in Metroid. We shouldn't be controlling Samus and her ship. This and that, But like you said, I do think that if they deliver and make it really kick ass, that it won't matter and people will get over it.
Yeah.
And I think it would be a smart way to sort of change up the formula, provided it didn't take up too much of the game. Because I will admit that I would want the vast majority to be me controlling Samus. That's what I'd want to do. But yeah, they could do such amazing space battles. And like you said, the precedence with how the space pirates are, we've seen that they do work together in huge, what is like giant companies of ships where they're all together just having a battle. And it would be in the same way that you could almost, like some of the most recent Halo games put you in ships where you're doing, a couple small missions that are in like a ship doing space battles. You could sort of mix in a similar mix with a Metroid game. Yep. I think it could work.
And that's where that's why I'm like, because people, you want to do stuff to make the series not stale. And the thing is like, it's in space. So why not just take it to that level? And going back and playing Metroid Prime 3, that whole first part where you see all this stuff happening or all this chaos around you, I'm like, I would love to take this gunship and go wreck shop.
It's true. Oh, and dude, I didn't even think about how badass it would be to be in Samus's ship.
Yeah.
As Samus's ship. Like, I didn't even think about that. I was just thinking like, oh, a spaceship. But I was like, oh yeah, it would be Samus's spaceship. Yeah. That's 1,000 tons cooler.
Yeah, because she has weapons. If you look at Metroid Prime 3, if you look at her ship has weapons on it.
Yeah, you can like fiddle around in the cockpit and you're sort of getting an idea of what it can do. And then like you're dropping the bombs in some of the places and it's like, wow, that stuff, there is a lot to that ship.
Yeah,
and
that
not
was just a transport.
Yeah, it's not just a transport. And I remember when I was like kind of reading about corruption and stuff, both before and after it came out, I remember that they were sort of talking about how they wanted to make her ship feel like an organic part of her character, an organic interactive part of the game, like an extension to Samus almost. That was kind of what they wanted to do with it. So they tried to give it more to do and more character with those weapons and abilities. So it would be cool if they delivered on that more as a main mechanic to a game, like you said.
Yeah, and
there's a lot.
It doesn't have to be like half the game. No, I just want like 2 or 3 missions. I don't need like
perfect. I agree. That's really perfect.
Yeah, I don't need like the 40% of the game to be space missions. I just need 2 or 3 missions. Nothing crazy, just 2 or 3 missions.
And I go ahead.
Yeah, no, you go.
I was just gonna say that everything you say, like the potential is definitely there. Yes, I think there might be some backlash about it at first. Gamers, man, we're a picky bunch, and we love to have issues with things. We love to have issues and take
before we even play it.
Before we play it, absolutely. And I'm not going to sound like I'm not perfect, and I'm guilty of things like that sometimes too. But I think that even though people would take issue with it, if it was done kind of in the way that we're talking about, I think it could be cool. And especially if you mix it, like you said, with the first person and the third person, and my kind of vision for where Metroid could go, it's a couple things. Like, I do think that, as we were talking about, Metroid Prime, as far as like a Metroid Prime Part 4, we don't need it. I wouldn't be upset if it was happening by any stretch, but it's not what I want. I'm not like wishing they would make Metroid Prime Part 4. It's not what I think it should do. Now, I do think that, kind of like I was asking you, I think that you could probably still make another Metroid game entirely in first person and make it really good if you did enough to make it feel separate from the Prime stuff, and maybe a different engine, a slightly different graphical style. If you're not so reliant on some of the same things like the scanning and this and that, you could obviously still do it, but you'd want to make it feel different if it was going to be first person, but also not be Prime 4. So I think like that would be cool. I would very much welcome another first person Metroid game. I think that a third person game, well, obviously a 2D game. I would love a 2D game. I think we all kind of talk about, oh, Metroid could be 2D again, like on the 3DS, or even like a super beautiful Wii U 2D game. Yeah. I would be so excited if they did a 2D game again. But building again on also what you were saying, because you and I see so many redeeming factors to Other M, especially in the gameplay department. Dude, make another game like Other M. Make a third-person kick-ass game where you play as Samus, just like Other M, and make it better. The great thing is now we have more powerful consoles and hardware, whether it would be a Wii U game or an NX game or whatever they would do. I think that taking the style of gameplay, not the story and the voice acting and the crying that everyone, bitches about, just take the gameplay from Other M and put that in a better Metroid game and make the combat and stuff better in like a bigger world to explore. That would be amazing. Just like you were kind of saying, all the wrestling moves and the hand-to-hand combat, as well as her arm cannon and all that. That would be like the coolest stuff in the world. And the last thing I want to mention, and I want to hear your thoughts on this too when I think about where it could go. I brought this up in one of my own videos a long time ago, and I have no idea, Jay, if you ever saw that or not, but it was just about ideas for a Metroid game like a year ago. And something that I still think about from when I had that conversation was, I feel like, and you even actually brought this up just like 10 or 15 minutes ago too. I feel like there is a place in the world for a Metroid game that really tries to be kind of scary and kind of creepy, right? Because it's built so much on that feeling of aloneness, like you said, that feeling of solitude, that foreboding, ominous nature of, oh my God, like what's around the next corner? What's in the next room, or what's behind that next blast door? Like, what am I going to see? And I think, tell me if you agree with this, that there has been a couple of times in the Metroid history where they've toyed with the idea. I think about the one like space station in Metroid Prime 3 that you go to that's like abandoned, right?
Yeah.
And like it's like a dead crew. that you're going in. You spend very little time there, but it's a really cool scene. And a lot of the music and the solitude in Metroid Primes 1 and 2 are kind of doing that as well. Where, especially in Metroid Prime 2, like Dark Aether is kind of like them trying to make a horror version of Metroid, I think, because it's creepy as hell. Yes, and the Ing are like these dark, evil creatures, right? And it's like, it wasn't trying to be like a jump scare thing, but I think it's toying with sort of being like a creepy horror environment. And I also think about, like, in Metroid Fusion, people don't talk about that game very often, but the way the SAX is hunting Samus, and the way, like, you'll run into the SAX and it shows like that creepy up close shot of her, and she looks like kind of like a zombie monster thing, and it's like got that creepy music. I think that there's precedence for them to try to make a very purposeful, scary Metroid experience. And I think that if they didn't cop out and try to copy like a Resident Evil kind of thing, and don't make it gory for the sake of being bloody, I don't think we need a bloody game. I think we need a game that's all about making you very scared, even though you feel empowered because Samus is a strong character. So I'm curious, that's kind of a little personal dream I have for a Metroid game. And I don't know, like, how you feel about that idea. So I'm kind of curious as to your thought on that.
Actually, that would actually work. Some of the best horror movies are not the ones with all the gore and torture and all that. It's the ones that mess with your head.
Yes.
So that could actually work, because the way they set up, and you saw some of this in Other M, when you're going to the different parts of the of that space station, some of those when it slows down and the camera gets like right behind Samus and she has to slowly walk through like a corridor.
Yes,
you see like a mangled body over here, and you see like a body that looks like it's got its skin deteriorated over here.
It's kind of like they're trying to direct a horror movie sequence, right?
Yeah.
Like they're trying to go for that. Like, I think Metroid has always had this sense, and even like they've said from the beginning, like, it's about being alone. It's about being stuck alone in space. Even though Samus is a badass, she's alone in a really crazy, dangerous, scary environment. And I think that you could take that to another level on the creepy factor if they wanted to do that. And it makes me think of the very first time I ever thought about this was the very infamous Metroid Dread, because I thought about that title, Dread. I was like, dude, what if that game was supposed to be a scary game? Or what if they could just make a title called Metroid Dread, and the dread means to be fearful of something. Like, you dread something scary, and they can make a scary game, you know? That's very like slow and calculating with its monsters and its aliens and what she's fighting.
Because you got to remember, when you think about it, remember the space pirates are geniuses too. They make a lot of crap that kills them.
Yeah,
I mean,
very true.
They make a lot of crap that kills them. I mean, they make a lot of crap that, you know, winds up like busting out of its tank.
Yeah. You guys need better security on all of the crazy monsters that you create.
Yeah.
Maybe you should get thicker glass next time.
Or something.
Yeah.
or maybe start out small, something you can step on.
Yeah. Well, and that's the whole thing with Metroid Prime, though, that you learned from the first game, right? Is they were starting out small and they were trying experiment after experiment after experiment, and they kept failing and failing, and then they had the one that kept growing, and all of a sudden they created Metroid Prime.
Basically, yeah.
Because they started feeding it the phase on, and it's like, oh crap! Now look at what we did, and we're all dead.
Yeah, it's pretty much how that went. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's ripe for that, and I think the reason why it's ripe for that, in all honesty, is because of what they took it from. The source material was Alien.
Alien, yeah.
So, I mean, even down to like, have you ever noticed how Ridley looks like a xenomorph a little bit?
Oh, super, yeah, absolutely.
He's a xenomorph dragon.
He is. He's a xenodragon. I totally agree.
He just breathes fire. That's it. And the other thing that I actually love about what they did with Ridley, you don't realize this, but you kill Ridley in the first game. You kill Ridley, you kill Craig. They cloned Ridley so much so to the fact that every time you face him in subsequent games, you're not fighting the original Ridley. You're fighting his clone.
Yeah, absolutely. And then they kept keeping him alive by turning it into Mecha Ridley, right? And all that.
Yeah.
Stuff. Yeah.
They kept putting like the metal enhancements because they couldn't figure out why he couldn't kill Samus.
Yeah, because he was supposed to be their ultimate way to stop Samus, right?
Yeah.
Dude, when you bring up Kraid, like, how cool would it be if they found a really ingenious way to bring Kraid back in some way?
That would be awesome.
I think there's such a cool potential there.
I've actually been wanting to see, will they do that? Will they bring, because we already got Ridley. We've already had the story of how they did Ridley with the whole cloning process. So
Sure.
My thing is find a way to bring back Kraid and have it basically like they used to do in the original Metroid Prime, where it's like a double team fight.
Oh, that would be so cool.
Yeah.
That would be so freaking cool.
Now that is a way to, like, if you want to, you know, up your skill as a gamer, I would love to see that happen and give you like a way to like fight both of them at the same time.
I just don't even know. I mean, it would be crazy. And I think especially like today because we have like more powerful hardware and stuff, for example, with the systems, like they could make that an amazing, like a final battle for the game, right? Is that what you're thinking? Like the final battle would be that? Yeah, that would be a crazy finale, like Bayonetta style crazy.
Yeah, because that's when I think about like finales. That's what I think, like, because we all know how Samus works. Samus blows up the planet she's on. All right.
Yeah.
let's just get.
She's like, well, I've done my piece. Grab what you need, but grab what you need because this shit's about to blow.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the majority of her games ends up with the end of it. Something blows up, and it's usually a planet.
So basically, don't invite her over for dinner because you're going to regret it.
So, I mean, that would be, to me, instead of like the whole beat the clock thing that they try to do from time to time.
Yeah,
that would be a better finale. Like if you're fighting on a world that's about to blow up, a la Dragon Ball Z. Frieza
yeah,
fight.
man, I knew right where you were going. Dragon Ball.
Yeah, if you do that on a planet where like she has to fight to get to her ship while fighting the two of them,
that'd be crazy.
That would be awesome.
Where you're like going, would you like maybe go back through like the places you had to go just to get to them? And then you're fighting them like on the way back through those same locations you'd been to, trying to get back to your ship.
Yep.
That'd be amazing.
That would be awesome. And the way if you get back in time, you leave, they blow up.
Yeah.
With the planet.
It kind of makes me sad for one thing though, because like talking about this, like all these great enemies and fighting Kraid and Ridley and stuff at the same time, like it's almost too bad and sad to think that obviously they really shouldn't do another Metroid Prime game, because I would love in some way for Dark Samus to continue as a character, because I freaking love Dark Samus.
Yeah.
And a huge reason to me Dark Samus is great is the same reason why Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker work together so well, is that they need each other to become great characters, right?
Yes, yes.
So like Dark Samus works amazingly as a foil to Samus. So keep finding a way to make that continue would be fantastic. I mean, you really can't, because as we discussed, you defeat Dark Samus when you defeat Metroid Prime and Aurora 313. Like Dark Samus is done for sure.
Yeah, but there's no way. They made sure that there's no way to bring her back.
Yeah, they made it airtight, and
yeah.
It's great for that story in that series, but it sucks just because I love Dark Samus, you know, and I wouldn't want like a prequel. You know, some people might say, "Oh, you can make a prequel," and it's like, no, I wouldn't really want that.
No,
yeah, it's like I would rather either it be continuing or it's just done. Yeah, and you can't really continue it. You know, you just can't.
Well, the one more thing before we go to my special question.
Special question.
Yeah, the one thing I want to talk about before we do that is the inclusion of the other bounty hunters. We talked about Metroid Prime Hunters, and in 3 in Prime Corruption, you saw 3 of the other bounty hunters. Now you know at least one of them, Rundis, was you could assume that him and Samus were close.
Yeah, they seem very similar in nature and like how they're wearing like those similar suits and stuff, and they share the most dialogue between each other, right? Yeah, because they actually you kind of felt like they were actually friends. Yeah, definitely, which kind of makes it all the more tragic when he's the first one you fight too. Yeah, but like quick question. I can never remember the third hunter. There's Rundis and there's Gandreda. Who is the third guy? What is it? Yeah, Ghor. Gore? Really? Wow, I totally brain farted that. Okay. The guy that kept jumping, he did the suits. Yes, that's right. He's kind of like a skeleton guy. He was in the huge thing. Yeah. Okay, Gore, that's right. Okay, continue. So, I mean, that's one thing I would like, because like I know a lot of people nowadays, you know, they want multiplayer and everything, and
one way to actually do that without, going overboard, I would say, would be to introduce like some of the other hunters, some of the other bounty hunters,
like the same ones back into the universe.
Not the same ones, but just like different ones, just because the problem is she killed most of them in Metroid Prime Hunters.
Oh yeah. I guess that's a good point, huh?
Then she killed them.
Oh no, wait, they're dead.
Yeah, so
I forgot about that.
But I mean, if you can like bring some more in, like, because over the years she would have had to have some kind of relationships with some of the other
the other peoples with the GFS, with the Galactic Federation.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're totally right. Which is what Metroid Prime 3 and Other M worked to introduce into the game lore is the larger universe of she works with the Galactic Federation. There are people involved with it,
Yeah. Like she's not just out on her own, just going down hunting people.
Yeah, I mean, she's the best at what she does, but there are other people kind of doing it.
Yeah. So it's a big universe, basically.
Yeah. It's like Mace Windu was a badass, but he wasn't the only badass in the Jedi Council.
Yeah. So that's
I'll just keep drawing Star Wars parallels the whole time. Sorry.
It works though. It works. That's what I would like to see that. That way you could get like because I'm a big proponent of couch co-op and online. So
sure. Yeah.
I would like to actually see like if there is one thing that I would actually ask if for the next console Metroid game, if we can have like something where there is like a multiplayer component, maybe have like a couch co-op online co-op thing where you can actually have like another hunter join you on whatever mission or whatever.
I think that would be fantastic. It reminds me of another thing that going back to that other older discussion I had a long time ago about ideas for a new Metroid. At that time, that was when it seemed very possible that we could get Metroid on the Wii U still. Obviously, it doesn't seem like that's the case necessarily, but at the time, it was like, maybe we'll get one on the Wii U. And so another idea I had was building on that co-op. And what I thought would be a really cool idea is if you could play co-op. This would have to be something that wouldn't be couch co-op, to be fair. This could only be done online this way, would be if you and another person are playing through the campaign, or a mission or something where you're both trying to achieve a goal. But let's say you're on different parts of the planet or different areas of the map or whatever, and the gamepad is actually giving you the view that the other player is seeing, and you have to sort of work within and like give each other hints, and it kind of is keeping you connected where you can talk to and communicate with that person and see what they're doing on your own gamepad. And that was just a very Wii U specific idea of how Metroid could be co-op. So I thought
that would actually be. I could see the possibilities with that,
dude. Right? I think that's a really cool freaking idea. Like it would be co-op, and it would be using like the Wii U to its great potential of that controller. And it was just me spitballing really cool ideas, and it would feel right for Metroid because it would mean yes, you're working with somebody else, but you'd also still be alone. Right?
Yeah.
So you'd still be doing the solitary Metroid Samus thing. So that's my idea. They should do that. Nintendo would do that.
Yeah, that's actually badass. I actually like that idea.
Right? We can dream.
Yeah. But all right. So before we wrap up, here's my special question.
All right, I'm ready.
Back during the GameCube era, the 6th gen, there was a rumor that Nintendo was working on a crossover between Metroid and Star Fox.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of those questions that we always want as gamers. We always want something new. We want something fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Should Nintendo go forward with that? Should they bring that back up, and should they go forward with that?
Man, so are you asking me?
I'm asking you. Before I give mine, I'm asking you.
Okay. So, man, I forgot. You did very quickly mention we were going to talk about this before we started recording, and I forgot that until you just now asked it. So, yeah, that's a tough question. At the end of the day, there's so much to answer for that. Most simple, basic answer, yeah, sure. I would be totally okay with that. Because I love Metroid. It's my favorite series ever. And she's my favorite character, just like I'm pretty sure, obviously, you feel the same way. So I love Metroid. So give me more Metroid, give me more Samus. And Star Fox, also, without question, one of my favorite franchises of all time. Holds a very special place in my heart. Mr. T has talked about how much Star Fox has been very important to him in his life. And I'm in the same boat. Maybe not quite to the extent he is, but it's very, very close for me. And it's why I'm super excited for Star Fox Zero. So, and they're both very much like space adventure games, right? Like they're Nintendo games that are space adventure games. So the recipe is there for a really great crossover. So yes, I think that would be great. I would welcome it and be very excited. So if I had to really pick one or the other, yes or no, I would say yes. And I think it could be great. But at the same time, I think that there's the potential for it just to not go well. I think that it would just Nintendo would have to have a really perfect vision of how to merge the different gameplay styles, because there's very different gameplay styles, and also to maybe explain why it's happening. And obviously you run into the whole issue of, well, the Star Fox universe is anthropomorphic animals and the Metroid universe is people. You know, I guess you could introduce that, well, you know, Samus fights aliens, and maybe in this game, it turns out that the Star Fox crew, they're just a different kind of alien. So maybe that's how they would do that, I guess. I don't really know. But
I'm all with the black hole theory.
Oh, the different dimension kind of thing?
Yeah.
Honestly, that's probably the simplest way. And to be fair, I bet that's how Nintendo would explain it.
Yeah.
I think you probably nailed it on the head. That's how they would do it. And my last thought to it is that the reason I think some people would totally lose their minds and be upset about it. It would be very divisive. Some people would be like, yay. Other people would be like, hell no. And I think that a reason you could sort of defend it happening is like Smash Brothers, for example. Like Smash Brothers kind of has set this precedence for the Nintendo universes to kind of cross over where it makes no sense and for us to just be okay with it. So I would use the Smash Brothers logic and my fanship of both series to just say, okay, I'm cool with that. The game looks awesome. So that's kind of my take, but now I super want to hear your idea.
Well, my idea would be, and this is one of those things where I thought about it a lot, because one, they do have two very different play styles, but ever since Star Fox Adventures on Dinosaur Planet that Rare did,
yeah. By the way, like, I love Star Fox Adventures. By the way,
this could work on so many levels, because you can actually go in space, do the space missions, have her like, and the way I see it opening out is basically the Star Fox crew or Samus, whichever one, you know, is in a fight. Something happens, they hit either a wormhole or something like that, and wind up in the other one's area of space, because we're in space.
Yeah,
you know,
anything can happen in space.
Yeah, anything can happen in
really
space.
True.
So the way I see it is one of them saves the other one. You pick, you know.
Yeah. Pick who we start with, and then the other person is the one saving the other guys.
Yeah, and that's how they meet. And then it's a pretty much, you can either have it a race against time to stop Andross and the space pirates from doing something stupid, or you can have them have to stop, you know, maybe a revival. That's maybe a way you can revive Kraid. Andross is a space chimp genius. You know.
Hey man, it's possible.
Yeah. So and then you can do like both the.
So would that be more of an approach of like? I guess it's almost two different approaches though. Like it's like either they cross dimensions where they don't live in a different dimension, or to your other point, it's almost like, well, what if it's the enemies that got together, right? Like the enemies of Star Fox got together with the enemies of Samus to become the ultimate power, and then the good guys also have to get together to stop the bad guys. Kind of.
Yeah. Or because that was one of my ways of doing it was like either Andross hooks up with the space pirates, or and during the ensuing like battle, say with Star Fox or whatever, or with Samus, where Samus is probably outnumbered and outgunned, they come out of nowhere.
That'd be amazing.
Basically, Slippy makes something and it backfires on him.
Damn it, Slippy.
Yeah, so
I think that's a pretty cool idea too. And it's interesting because when you mention the Andross hooking up with the space pirates, for some reason that feels really right. That idea of Andross working with the space pirates, like, because Andross is mostly just one guy, right? He's just one superpower, and he's got all these robots and stuff that fights the Star Fox team. Because people forget, like, the Wolf team isn't working with Andros. That's a whole third entity to the
Star Fox. That's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, totally different can of worms. You're totally right. So like Andros is just a guy with a bunch of robots, kind of like Robotnik is in Sonic, but he doesn't really have an army. So what if he became the leader of an army, and that army was the space pirates? And then it's like you got a whole new recipe for disaster. And I think that really just feels like a right marriage of universes, right? Like that sounds good to me.
And then you can do your land missions and your space missions, because you would have to have with them.
So what's the gameplay then? Yeah. So that's the question. When you think about a crossover, what would the gameplay end up being?
That's when I call Hideki Kamiya.
We need you. Come save
me. Kamiya at Sushi Inaba and everybody at Platinum. I got a game for you.
Make some cool shit happen.
Yeah.
So you think like third person action and Star Fox space combat, kind of like back and forth?
Yeah, back and forth like that. Like the whatever planet missions you would need to do on the ground, third person action. Space missions could be either in the cockpit or out the cockpit. But I would go third person.
You know what it reminds me of when you talk about it that way is Star Fox Assault.
Kind of.
I mean, granted, I know a lot of people don't like Star Fox Assault, but that game was very much like 50-50. You're in the R-Wing fighting or you're on the ground fighting.
Yeah.
In many missions, you did both.
Yeah.
So maybe, is that kind of how you would envision it? Sort of, or not so much?
That's how I would envision it. But like, I would also have like a couple of missions where Samus is either by herself with Star Fox or either Slippy, like helping her out via comm or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like a la Star Fox Adventures, where like the comm would come up, and
and General Pepper would be like, "All right, Star Fox, this is the thing you have to do."
But I would have it where like they can't go down on that planet because it's a toxic planet, but Samus can.
Yeah. Oh, good call. So like they play to each team's strengths based on what they can do. So here's another big question that factors into this, and it's based on what we talked about. Should Samus talk in that game?
Yes.
She kind of has to, right?
She has to, because Slippy can make a communicator where it can translate voices. So
because they wouldn't probably both speak English. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's
like,
true.
It would be one of them situations where, you know what, this is the perfect excuse. You want her to talk? Hey, there she go. Now get Jennifer Hale on the phone and let her voice her.
Yeah. By the way, I just have to say, at Denver Comic-Con last year, I met Jennifer Hale.
I despise you so much right now.
You're welcome. I know. It was great. And I told her it's because she's known for so many things, right? She did like the Female Shepherd and stuff most recently and Mass Effect. And I was like, I love you. You're great in everything. But my favorite thing, even though it wasn't a lot of voice acting, is I love that you played Samus in the Metroid Prime games. Yes. And I was like, that was just so cool. And she was like so thrilled that I brought that up, because there's not a lot of dialogue she does, but she was the voice of all the grunts and the everything she does in Metroid. You know, she is Samus.
She is Samus. She will always be Samus.
She was so nice. I know we're derailing. She was so nice and polite, though, by the way. She was so happy to be meeting people. I just want to say mad props to Jennifer Hale. She was a genuine cool person who was down to just chat and take a picture with you. So
now I'm going to Comic-Cons because of you. Thank you.
You should. You're welcome. So awesome. Anyway, continue.
That's actually cool, though, because I've heard her and Tara Strong are actually cool as hell. So
probably I've never met Tara, and it was just lucky that at the Comic-Con that I went to, that Jennifer Hale happened to be there, and my buddy wanted to go meet her, and I was like, dude, I gotta meet Jennifer Hale. So, yeah, it was so awesome. She was so nice, so cool.
Yeah, that is awesome, man. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
But yeah, that's pretty much how I would do it. And I'm sorry, I would have to get Platinum.
Yeah, that would be amazing, man. I mean, Platinum, we know they're working on Star Fox, and I think that's going to be a great team up there. I think them on Star Fox is going to be awesome. But I thought the same thing. Like, no one ever brought it up, but I was like, dude, why isn't anyone talking about them making a Metroid game? I think they'd be great for Metroid.
That's
honestly,
right up their alley.
It is right up their alley. To tell you the truth, my perfect scenario wouldn't have been to even put Platinum on Star Fox. I think Retro should have been on Star Fox, and Platinum should be doing Metroid. That would be perfect for me.
Yeah.
Because Retro, I think they did so well with Metroid. They did so well with Donkey Kong. You know, another Nintendo franchise that could use a fantastic reboot is that one.
Yep.
Like I think they could have been perfect for the action that is a Star Fox game. So even though I think Platinum, like I said, will be great for it too, what if Platinum was instead set on Metroid?
Because when you say it like that, because I know Platinum will have you doing missions in that Zero suit with that whip.
Yes, we know that's coming.
Yeah,
well, that would be coming, I should say, without question.
Yeah. So I mean, I actually, because now I just think about it, because I remember playing Vanquish and some of their other games, that would work right up their alley.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
They could make that action. You want to talk about WWE moves on Samus?
Yeah.
Have Platinum do Samus.
Yeah. We'll get a rock bottom, Stone Cold Stunner, RKO.
Yeah. It'd be freaking amazing. So amazing. And, it might even still happen. That's the whole thing. When we talk about where Metroid could go and like what Metroid game they probably are making, it's like, we know that they seem to be working. We know they're working on something. Like they didn't talk about it at E3. And I don't remember who it was who said that, if we were going to do a Metroid Prime, it would have to be something that would show up on the next console. Which kind of fed into my whole thing about whether or not Metroid Prime is the next game that we're getting, but I don't want to talk about that right now. Yeah. When you mention that, it's like, well, that kind of says that they're probably working on some Metroid game that very doubtful is for the Wii U. It's probably going to be for the NX. And if that's a good 2 or 3 years away, why couldn't Platinum also be the ones working on that with Nintendo? Like it could basically still be a reality, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, we also know that Platinum does like working with the Nintendo. You don't hear them say anything bad about them.
Yeah, like they unfortunately recently did with Microsoft, or I should say Hideki Kamiya did have bad things to say about working with Microsoft with Scalebound. But you're right. They very publicly said great things about working with Nintendo on Bayonetta.
Yeah, and Wonderful 101. They do like the environment. So I wouldn't see. That's why I always was like, Iwata, bruh, just buy your own stuff.
Yeah, it's so true, man.
I'm like, dude, just get them and put when Kamiya kept making all those tweets about Star Fox, I'm like, dude, he wouldn't have had to make but one tweet for me.
Yeah, first one's all you need.
Yeah, so I mean, I would love to see what Platinum would do with something like, because I know the way Platinum works, I would love to see what they would bring to the table. Yeah,
and especially on something. The one thing about with Star Fox is we know that they didn't start development with Nintendo and Miyamoto on that. They were brought in after development had already started, partly because that game started as a Wii game many years ago, and now they're kind of completing it on the Wii U. But imagine if they did start on a game like Metroid with Platinum from the ground up, right? That's what you want, is to know that they were there from the conceptual phase and working with Nintendo from the very, very beginning planning of a new Metroid game. Yeah. And it would just be orgasmic. It would be so good.
Yeah, so good. I would expect a lot, because we know how fast-paced their games can get. I would expect some crazy boss fights.
Definitely. Now, what about the puzzle-solving aspect? Because I think that's something that people forget about with Metroid is, to me, with the exception of Other M, it's probably the one thing I didn't really love about Other M, is the fact that there really wasn't a lot of problem solving. It was just all action, which was great. But I still like the having to put different pieces together to a big thing, to unravel a mystery, to get a new item and this and that, that the older Metroid and the Prime games did. So we haven't really seen Platinum work with that. So do you think that they could do well with that kind of idea?
If you're working with Miyamoto and Takeda, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you're working with those,
yeah, I'd agree. Yeah,
because they would probably work on that anyway. I just have a feeling that that's right, because that's right up Miyamoto's alley. Puzzles. It is. Jeez, that dude gets on my nerves with that missing Mario.
Oh my god, it's so true. It's ridiculous what he can do.
Yeah,
and it's like you put that in a difficult Metroid game where you're controlling a Samus that Platinum has created for us. It would be just chaos, but the best kind of chaos, right?
Yeah. It would be chaos on a Bayonetta level.
Yeah.
And I have no problem with that.
I think it would be pretty fantastic. But back to the Star Fox crossover thing. I mean, do you think that there's still a possibility for it to happen?
I think that anything's possible, especially because the thing is, we always talk about, like I said before, we always talk about wanting something new and something fresh. And I think this is a way to do that. and knock out two birds with one stone. You know what I'm saying? You have people who are diehard Star Fox fans who get mad when their series skips a console, and in that way you can actually take care of that with two series, marry them together, have them cross over, and be on a console for a console release.
Yeah. No, but do you also, how do you think people would react to it? That's my other kind of.
I think at first they would probably at first, because it depends on who all you get, who's going to be working on it.
Yeah.
At first they would probably be some. You'd hear the backlash, of course.
I think there would be a lot. Yeah, because even when the news came out, whatever, a couple of years ago when they talked about it, right? If you remember, even at that time, it wasn't even announced as a thing. It was like, oh, there was a rumor about this was going to happen.
Yeah.
And even then, people were very divided on the idea.
Yeah. But once you see that gameplay and once you see that treehouse, that's going to go right out the window.
Yeah. And that would be the thing, is they'd have to really knock that out of the park, right? I mean, it would have to just be obviously the most mind-blowing thing we'd ever seen. And I think it would be, obviously. I think there's no doubt they would put crazy amounts of care and time into it. But I think you're right. That would be the way that they'd have to kind of quiet most of the detractors, is to be like, well, you may think it sounds dumb, but look, it's amazing. And people would be like, oh, okay, now I'm buying 4 copies.
Yeah, because that's the thing that I think people like. Yeah, you talk a big game when you're mad, but when you see that treehouse event, or you see that when the treehouse comes out and shows you gameplay, you hear people get quiet.
Yep. Because Nintendo knows what they're doing, you know?
Yeah, so when you see the gameplay, that's different. So I think like what'll happen is there'll be people pissed off, mad, and then they see that first trailer, they see that concept art, then that Nintendo Direct with that treehouse gonna come in.
Yep. And like you said, if they announce the right people working on it, like let's say that was even Retro. Let's say it's like, oh, Retro's doing it. Or if it was Platinum Games is working on it with us, or some other really great third-party developer, somebody else they bring in. Monolith Soft. What if that was something Monolith did, right? Yep. So if they announced that, if like talent alongside of that stuff, I think you're totally right. People would be like, yep, I'm down.
Yep.
2 birds with one stone, like you said.
They'll be like, I'm buying a physical copy and digital.
Yep. And I'm buying 3 for my friends.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it could work, and I actually think it could work across the board with like other franchises, especially franchises that maybe not as well known, or maybe have skipped a couple generations. I think.
Like, what do you think? Like, what's an example? What's an example you think?
Let's see. Kid Icarus and say. What's a good one?
Kid Icarus and Star Fox could actually work very well.
Yeah, that could work too. Yeah, like Kid Icarus and Star Fox, Kid Icarus and because the Kid Icarus, after playing Uprising, I gotta give it to Sakurai. The dude knows how to make a game.
Oh, that is a great game. Actually, I totally agree. It is crazy presentation, beautiful graphics. The gameplay is unique and has a very steep learning curve, but it's actually really great.
Yeah, and once you get into it, you can't stop playing it.
I totally agree.
So
I was like, this carpal tunnel is going to be so worth it when I beat this game.
Yeah, and the game, even the ending boss battle in Kid Icarus Uprising was actually satisfying.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
It was very satisfying to me.
And there was crazy set piece moments and stuff, and I think it worked really, really well. And the voice acting and the dialogue was very fun and clever and fast, and I thought it was very well handled.
Yeah, so I would say something like that, like the franchises that people know about but don't really like. They know there's like space between games, Like, I mean, hell, we could go all day with like stuff like that. Like, I know one of the games that people love is F-Zero. So F-Zero maybe crossover with Diddy Kong Racing.
Oh yeah, please! Oh my gosh. That'd be so amazing. Or Mario Kart, obviously. They've been hinting at that in Mario Kart.
Yeah. So, I mean, stuff like that, I think the crossover way is a way to go, or at least because those games, I can't see them costing that much to make.
Probably not, you know, and like you said, you're appealing to two fan bases at once, so you could potentially be reaching an even wider audience if it was just a Kid Icarus game or just a Star Fox game or what have you. You know, you're reaching a wider audience. And I had to bring up the other one that people have been talking about for a long time now. When are we going to get Mario and Sonic in a good platforming game together?
Yeah, I mean,
let's do that already. Like that's waiting to happen.
Yeah, I don't want to play no Olympics. I don't care about them at the Olympics.
Yeah, no, me neither.
Yeah, let's put them. You know, let's let them have that team up.
Yep. There's a lot of potential, and that's another thing. Going back to the, I know we're derailing from Metroid, but like if Robotnik and Bowser got together as enemies, there's a great setup there.
Yeah.
There's an amazing setup there.
There is an awesome setup. So I mean, that's what I mean when I say like should that happen? Because I remember them talking about that specific crossover. The rumor during the 6th gen on the GameCube was a rumor that they were toying around with that idea, and I'm like, dude, that could so work.
I think it could work. Like there are elements of it that make me nervous, like I first said. But at the end of the day, it just is too weird and exciting of an idea to I would just be like, hell yeah, let's see what that turns into.
Yeah, and I can once you get like I probably wouldn't put EAD on it because I would want them on something else. But
okay, gotcha.
I would probably get like a platinum or a retro on it.
I think so. I mean, you could make a case for even like next level games. I know people really like those guys, and I do too. They could. I feel like that might be too big of a scoped problem, but they're super talented. So next level is not a bad one. And again, I'm glad I even remembered to say this a couple minutes ago. Monolith. I mean, that's an internal Nintendo studio that we only know for a couple of games right now, like Batten Kaitos and the Xenoblade stuff. Yeah, the Xenoblade. Yeah. Why not work on something else now once they finish with Xenoblade Chronicles X? Like, what are they doing next? Maybe something like that. Yeah, I would hope so. But they're obviously talented, so they should be doing more stuff with Nintendo for sure. Oh yeah. That's no doubt about that. I mean, the guys know their stuff. I'm not gonna lie. So, I mean, well, that brings this particular episode to an end. I hope you guys out there in YouTube land enjoyed it. I will be doing more of these. Let me say the reason why I'm kind of doing this. I kind of get a little upset when I hear people make statements that are stupid. Better word. You realize you're on the internet, right? I mean, I'm just I know, but it gets to a point where when I hear other people that I know are intelligent, repeating what they say, that's what really irks me. So I kind of come across a few articles and I hear a few statements about like, powerful female character representation in video games. And while I do believe that there is room for more, because I'm all about diversity, I think that some people are not even acknowledging the awesome characters that we do have, and they're ignoring it. Or even giving them some of the credit that they deserve, kind of like you talked about before. Yeah, and in some cases, straight up saying they're damsels in distress when they're not. That's the next one I'm covering. So the next spotlight episode is going to be probably in about 2 weeks, but and I'll let people know who I'm covering then. But that's one that people say is a damsel in distress, and she hasn't been a damsel in distress since '98. So. I'm just gonna leave that there. So, Rob, you got anything you got coming up? Oh, that I have coming up? Well, I guess since it's kind of relevant to this, again, I'll just re-plug the fact that right now, typically on my channel, Rule of Two Review, I don't really do Let's Plays on a regular basis at all. I'm mostly just like random commentary on news pieces and stuff, kind of discussion, sort of like what we're doing here, only it's kind of smaller scale. But I do happen to be currently going through a Let's Play of Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, which, by the way, we didn't really talk about a whole lot tonight, but that's okay. It's a great game, and I randomly had been wanting to do this for a while, and it happened to, by coincidence, happen around the same time Jay and I were finally getting ready to put this together. So any other fellow Metroid and Samus fans, which obviously if you're listening to this, you are one, you can feel free to check that out. I'm going to be doing a couple parts here and just kind of going through that game. Whether you've played it before or not, definitely check it out. It's an amazing game. You should play it. And if you're curious, you should also watch me play it.
Yeah, and don't worry, I will put a link to that in the description. So,
oh, cool, thanks, man.
There will be a link to that gameplay in the description because Metroid Prime 2 is a good game. Now, granted, it's not my favorite.
Sure, me neither.
It is a good game, though.
I mean, I would argue still it's great, and I even kind of bring this up in one of the 2 parts I've already posted. How I do think that when you look at the Metroid Prime games, even though it's probably is my least favorite of the 3, I think it's the smartest. And it's the most carefully crafted because of the light and dark world mechanic and how much there is to do there. It's a brilliant game. It's not the best of them, but it is the most smart, I think. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
And that light suit is boss.
And you get it at the very end of the game. Oh, it's so tough, man. I wish you had it for more of the game. Anyway.
But yeah, that is our show for the evening. I hope everybody enjoyed it, and I hope to see you guys on my next vid. Peace out.
Later.